Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. I'm your host, Michelle White. This is my co-host, Dr. Regina Hall.
Hello.
And we are happy to be here with you this evening, right here on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And you're watching us live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top streaming social media platforms. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment. You're going to be able to call us at 313-355-6018. Again, that's 313-355-6018. And thank you for watching us right here on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Well, as we get started this evening, we have a streaming guest or LinkedIn guest, Parker J. Cole, who is an author, speaker, and a podcast host. So she's going to be telling, some of you are out there that you're authors or aspiring authors. Well, she has been able to market her business as far as Pakistan and England. So she's going to tell us a little bit how she's been able to do that, as well as talk about some of her novels and other things that she does. But before we get started with that, you know, we talk about community update and events. And there are, all this week I've been talking to people. You got to watch the show and tell people about the show, because I've been in conversations with people that have been looking for expungement information, and you got to scroll down on my page. I have posted, I've never in my life seen so many expungement fairs and workshops and processes to help people get their records expunged. So I've posted at least 3 different expungements just recently. So go to Michelle Turner White on Facebook, and then I've posted housing, people that are looking for housing, NACA, the national organization, and also for home repair, roofing and siding. So there's a lot of money out there for you, but you've got to go and get it. And also people that are looking for food. Every single day, Forgotten Harvest and Gleaners are giving out food. Go to their websites, go to their Facebook pages, and you'll see all over the area where they're giving out food. And you just go to one of those locations. And that's whatever city or country you're calling us from. Everywhere they have food pantries. Find out where they are. Some of this you have to just research yourself on Google. And then last but not least, I want to thank Dr. Regina, who nominated myself and one of our former guests, Erica Monk, for service work and things that we do in the community. And so we were honored by the American Business Women's Association this past week. And thank you again, Dr. Regina. That was a really nice affair. It was excellent food and lots of fun.
It was.
So thank you for that.
Sure.
And before we go to our guest, Dr. Regina likes to share moments of wisdom. Dr. Regina.
First I want to welcome our guest as well, Parker Cole. I've been knowing Parker and her mom for a little minute now. We have done some business together, and so it's really exciting to have you here, Parker, and we're looking forward to hearing more about what you have to say and share.
Yes.
And I wanted to share a couple of events that are coming up. So one is tomorrow, and I have been sharing about, I believe I shared about DeWin. That is the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, and they are having their annual faith-based wellness beyond the walls at Fellowship Chapel. So we're looking really forward to that tomorrow, and I am one of the presenters there for their workshop. And again, it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Fellowship Chapel. I'm excited about it, and last week I had an opportunity last Saturday to do one of our guests, Portia, Dr. Portia, who was on our show last Wednesday. And I had her and one of her board members on. We did, and it was just so exciting, and it was celebrated life. We were celebrating life from our pain. And we talked about letting go, moving forward, grief. It was just various topics, laugh, love. They had a nice comedian there. So it was wonderful. And I am very grateful for all these opportunities that God has given me to speak, to train, and to engage others. Just about what's going on in their life. It's always a networking opportunity when you have when you are able to go out and be amongst others. And so that event, and then on September the 7th, we're having our Sisters Journeying Together Women Empowering Girls Tea Party. This is our 3rd annual tea party, and I'm really looking forward to it. You can go to sistersjourneyingtogether.org, and you can find out more details about the tickets. But we're hoping that you will come out and support it. The whole purpose is to raise money for our girls between the ages of 12 and 17. On October the 11th, it'll allow us to go out in these various schools and interact with them and provide them with trinkets and notebooks and bags and just various things that we can help them with. Last year we focused on the menstrual, and this year we'll be doing that as well, because pads are very expensive and all girls don't have it, and so being able to provide the schools with it and the girls with it is so exciting to know that that is one need that we are trying to meet for them. So please go to sistersjourneyingtogether.org and find out more information about it. And then today, it was about reset, refocus, and restart. I love that because a lot of times we look at Wednesday as hump day. And we call it hump day because we're ready for Thursday and we want to hurry up and get to Friday. And I am an encourager of enjoy the moment. Enjoy the day that we have. And so instead of thinking about it as hump day, think about it as reset day, restart day, refocus day, to help you to realign your energy and to think about things in a different way. I had an opportunity to speak with my daughter yesterday, and there was a conflict, but I realized it was me. It was me. It wasn't her. It was me. And I had to step back and think about what I was doing. And I was able to apologize to her. And I know as adults, we don't think we need to apologize to our kids or look at ourselves and say, you know what, that was me. And so it takes really being transparent, being humble, and moving our children, even adult children, in a way where they can be transparent and vulnerable and humble and not wanting to withdraw from us as parents. So I just want to encourage you to reset, restart, and refocus.
That's good.
Yeah.
I had to apologize this morning to my son for something that I was like, okay, well, that's partially you doing that, not him. So
yeah,
I had to apologize.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
We can
it keeps
take
communication and be transparent and
It
recognize that we're not perfect.
We're not perfect.
That's right.
Yes.
That reset, refocus,
Restart.
and restart.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you, Dr. Regina.
Sure.
And audience, don't forget, we've got a licensed therapist right here.
Yes.
So you can call in. We all have different things that are going on in our lives, different things where maybe we would like to talk to a therapist, but don't always feel comfortable doing that. Well, you can call in. You don't have to say who you are. You can just share what's going on and get some good counseling advice from
Yes.
Dr. Regina. So feel free to call in at 313-355-6018. I'm going to say it again, 313-355-6018. Call today between 6 and 7 and talk to the therapist. Get some help. Don't just hold on to everything. Get some advice, some
Yes.
good sound advice. So thank you, Dr. Regina, for being here, and thank you, everyone, for listening
Yes.
to our show. So we've got Parker J. Cole,
Woo-woo!
Woo-woo! Author, a public speaker, and a podcast host. So did you want to read her bio, or I can read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Parker J. Cole is a USA Today best-selling author of historical romances, as well as a speaker, podcast host, and CEO of the podcast network PJC Media. And as an author, Parker enjoys exploring through the vehicle of romance. Her speaking topics focus on inspiration for aspiring authors. For nearly a decade, she has interviewed authors from all over the world via her podcast network.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome? So she's going to share with some tips with us too on that. And she's consumed with a plethora of interests that keep her life busy. She lives in Detroit, Michigan. And so you can visit her on her website, www.parkerjcole.com. And then she has another website with WordPress that she's going to share with us a little later. So thank you, Parker, for being our guest today.
Thank
We
you.
so appreciate you for being here. She's streamed in live, and we're going to talk. Let's talk.
Yeah, so let me just ask you the first question. What got you involved in writing books, novels?
I have to say, first of all, thank you so much for letting me be a part of your program this evening. Really looking forward to encouraging those aspiring authors out there to pick up the pen and write. So I'm really glad to have this opportunity. The way I got involved in writing is I was one of the fortunate people to know that I would be a writer. It was something that was inbred in me from my earliest years. I was always reading and always writing. I don't remember not having a book in my hand. So I am blessed in that I always knew writing was my purpose. And so it was just a matter of letting the journey unfold throughout the years.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. You know something, I love you saying that because I heard Oprah Winfrey say something to that effect. Just reading, just the fundamentals of reading and how it took her on various trips. Would you say that was your experience too, Parker, that you always having a book in your hand and knowing that you were going to be a writer, that you were adventurous and it took you on various trips?
I would say reading is the best way to leave without having to go anywhere because books take you to so many different places, especially if you like to have your imagination titillated by really interesting stories. And I'm a huge advocate of speculative fiction, like the Harry Potters, like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever fandom you want. Many people play video games. That's another form of speculative fiction, but it's just more interactive. But I love books that take me to different places, and I love romance. Romance is my primary genre that I write in because I love a happily ever after. I love the idea that love conquers all, and the road to true love never did run smooth. There's always something going wrong with it. And my increasing niche that I am growing in is exploring stories of African American history that are not rooted in slavery or in the slave narrative, because I believe that African American history does not start with slavery. I believe slavery interrupted it. And we have a very rich history that is not often explored. And so within the last couple of years, I've wanted to really make that my niche. So I'm always exploring really interesting history. One of my books, and I can talk about it here, one of my books called The Once and Future Queen is a historical romance of the King Arthur legend, where I make Guinevere a Nubian princess based off Nubia during the years of 500 AD and 515 AD. And we have a very interesting history there that a lot of people don't know about. So I spent like a year writing it, and a lot of people were surprised at the type of history there is. So I kind of feel like that's my calling as I do this thing called writing.
And as I'm looking through your website, I noticed that too, that you like novels that are historical and kind of go into that Rollins book type, what did he call it? The J.P. Rollins from, I forgot it just that quick, but the Rollins movies, where yours go,
Well, you talking J.K. Rowling, so she's a Harry
Yeah,
Potter lady. No, I'll
Harry
stick with
Potter. That's what I was trying to
yeah.
think of. So, like the Harry Potter type things. And I see that the Nubian princess from the book The Once and Future Queen, it says that she has to hide her identity.
Hmm.
So that sounds very interesting and very intriguing.
Yeah.
So, and the other book too looks pretty good. The conversation with Addison Lynn, reading and why I love it.
Oh
You want?
yeah. Eh, the thing about reading, and I really feel as if this is something that people need to be more aware of, is that when you don't read or don't pick up a book, and when you just depend on someone to tell you what the news is, you don't know the news for yourself. And so reading gives you the opportunity to ingest information and then for you to process that information, right? So it could be a nonfiction book, it could be an article, it could be blogging, a blog article even. But when you read, you are taking control of the information that's being put inside of you instead of looking at a screen or listening to someone feed that information to you, right? And so that's why reading is so important. Even though I love to escape, I also read for information. I read to learn and to expand my knowledge. If you don't expand your knowledge, someone's going to feel that with what they want you to either believe or know. So that's something for people to think about as well. So that's also something I talk about when it comes to children and parents helping their children to read, because the effects of reading are expansive.
I totally agree with that. I know you were saying how, many of our children are coming out of schools and they don't know how to read. I
Yeah.
am an executive in a college and I see the effects of the children not picking up books like we used to and carrying books. Everything's on the computer, and that has some benefit, but I think there's a tremendous benefit being able to pick up a book, learning how to tell a story, and getting into the adventure of whatever story you're reading.
It helps
Yeah.
with empathy too. Fiction helps the reader empathize with the character. So if you have a young boy who is learning that he's a wizard and he's growing in his powers and he meets all these obstacles, you are there with him to discover that. If you learn about a Nubian princess who had to run away from home to save herself from her murderous aunt, you sympathize with that character. And one thing that I think is lacking in today's world, because we don't have these tactile interactions like we used to, we lose the ability to have empathy and sympathy for our fellow man, right? So then what happens, everything is distant from me. I don't have any stake in the game, even an emotional stake in the game. So that's why reading can be that bridge, if you will, of helping people to empathize with others. And if you can empathize with a fictional character, then you can also empathize with your fellow man.
That's right. So that's why it's important to tell stories. And how many novels did you say you have? You told us that before we got on camera. How many romance novels do you have available to the public? 55, I believe, books. Uh oh, did we lose you?
You still
I believe
there?
I have about 55.
Yes,
Okay.
that is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
55.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, you think it's definitely it's important for people to tell stories and to write, even if they're journaling, to write. You want to tell us more about that? Why it's important to tell stories?
Stories is the universal language. And we've all been in a situation where we're standing somewhere, maybe we're waiting for the elevator, maybe we're at the break room at work, and someone says, "Did you hear what happened last night? Let me tell you what happened." And all of a sudden, we start to listen to what they're saying. You'd be surprised how you go, what happened last night? They may not be talking to you, but you're interested in what's going on. Or someone said, "Let me tell you what so and so did." We are drawn to stories. Story is the universal language. It connects us. We are connected by stories. Your mom tells you a story about something that happened. Your dad shares a story. Your friends, your cousins, we all share stories that connects us together. And we enjoy the community of story. And so with telling stories, you're again passing on information, history, um, anything that you need to pass on to the younger generation, because they don't have the stories of what has happened before, they won't know where they're going. And that's why also when I talk about encouraging aspiring authors, I think it's important for us to write our memoirs and to write our stories to share with the next generation. It's so important because you may not be here, but your story can last, and that can be a help to someone else.
So
So that's
true.
another thing I talk about too.
Well, let me ask you this because that is very true. And um, I heard a teacher say one time, or actually it was a preacher, she said there's so much potential in the grave.
Oh yeah.
And so to hear you say we can leave our, memoirs here when we're gone on, I just imagine that we don't really think about that, right? What we can leave, our legacy. And what I'm hearing you say that one of the reasons why you write is because you want your legacy to live on.
Yes, it's a form of immortality in a sense, but it's also helping the younger generation. There are stories that families don't tell about the older generation. And it could be because maybe something back in the day was taboo or was seen in a weird way. And so that story was not told to the younger generation. But the younger generation doesn't benefit from the lack, they benefit from knowing, even if you find it embarrassing. For example, when my grandmother passed away in 2021, I was able to dig through the old photos and I learned that my great grandmother and the family had started the first fully deaf mute church here in Detroit. I didn't know that, and my grandmother never said anything about it, and they had started it, and I was like, "Oh my goodness." So they have some part of local history here. I had no idea, and that just made me feel good that I was part of a family that did something like that. You never know how these little anecdotes can help the younger generation just by having that connection. That's why it's important to tell your story. If you tell your story, no one else can tell it for you. And you can help the younger generation because we're not going to be able to stay here forever. So, what do you leave behind? What wisdom do you leave behind? What lessons learned? Or maybe you made a bunch of mistakes. Don't go down this road because I went down this road and I made mistakes. I don't want that to happen to you. It's a form of compassion when you tell your stories. Now, I write historical romances because I love escapism. I think escapism is good, especially when you're having a bad day. You at least know that in my book, guy and girl are going to end up happily ever after. They may go through a lot, but they end up happily ever after. And maybe you may need that escapism because in real life, it doesn't always happen that way. So that's why I like to write those type of stories. Sometimes they go a little bit deeper than that. Sometimes they're really doing other things, but that's why I like to write. I want my legacy to show um, nice stories, lots of history, and I hope I grow as a writer as I continue in this thing called writing.
Well, Parker, you said the Once and Future Queen book. It sounds very interesting because we have learned just from this conversation that her mother was a murderer and she had to find her identity. And does that story end up being a good love story by the end?
Let me clarify. Her aunt murdered her mother, and that's something you find out in chapter one. Her aunt murdered her
Oh,
mother because she's a princess and the heir apparent to the Nubian throne of Nabodia. And Nabodia was a African kingdom that was part of three kingdoms called in our vernacular Christian Nubia. So it's the start of Christian Nubia. And so she was the heir apparent to this kingdom. And her aunt wanted the throne, and so her aunt killed her mom. So she had to escape. Well, her dad is a barbarian. He's a Saxon barbarian that the queen fell in love with. And when she had to leave, she had to find her way all over to England. So how do you get to England? Because one thing I had to do, I had to make it plausible because Guinevere and King Arthur, they're very much English legends and stuff. So I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So I made sure to keep Arthur Saxon and Welsh. That's what I made him. But I wanted to make the plausibility of having a Nubian Guinevere there. And in the book, it's actually Guelph, which is the Welsh word for Guinevere. And seeing her there. So it was a lot of research there, but it does have a happily ever after, but it does end on a cliffhanger too, because now we have to keep following their story. So
so part
that,
two.
yeah, part two. I think that's coming out next year. Part two
So
is coming out next year.
in relevance to children, why do you think children are coming out of schools unable to read, and how can we encourage them to tell their stories?
That's something I would love the answer to, but I think people just don't care. I think we are focused on other things instead of the welfare of our children. And I think it's a horrible thing to not have your children know how to read. I think that's horrible. I think
Yeah.
that when you don't allow them to read, again, they're being told what to think instead of using their own critical thinking skills to determine their own pathway, if you will. So they want to disseminate information, they can't disseminate it. Or if they're challenged in some part of their worldview, whatever that may be, they don't know how to even respond to it because they don't have the critical thinking skills to do that. And don't we want our children to do better than we did? Don't we want our children to succeed? Do we really want that? And I think it's easier just to pass the kid along than take the time to say, no, stay back. And then parents need to get involved. If it's not important to the parent, it won't be important to the child. You have to read with your child. You have to get involved with your child. There's a lady at my church, her granddaughter loves speculative fiction like Harry Potter,
Mm-hmm.
Percy Jackson, all those speculative, wizard fantasy stories. She loves those. She's a granddaughter. She doesn't really care for them, but what does she do? She listens to her talk about the stories. And what does that do? That continues to facilitate the conversation. I've had a young girl on my podcast. Her first book she published, she was 15, and she was homeschooled, and she published her first book of animal fantasy. And when I read it, I said, "Oh my gosh, she's writing really well." And I would not have known this child was 16, I'm sorry, 15 at the time when she wrote this book. So there's a lot involved with teaching your children how to read and why it needs to be important to you. If it's not important to the teacher, it at least needs to be important to the parent.
And then the other thing I learned when my son was in grade school, went going to a parent-teacher conference, and the teachers shared with me that sometimes you think when they get in the 5th grade, 6th grade, they should be able to do their homework on their own. She said, no, you still need to work with them through the whole process till 12th grade. Help in some manner, whether it's just working with them, sitting down with them and working with them, or just making sure you go over to see that they do something and interact and have conversation with your children to find out what they're doing, talk about what the assignments they've done, to stay in connection with their whole learning process. And I just this past couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to we have some interns, and one of the they're all 17, 18, just coming out of high school and going away to college. And one of the young ladies has been so nervous, scaringly nervous, just to even answer the phone, just to say, good morning, good afternoon, such and such a business, how may I help you, to the point where she was crying. Except just like she had been sheltered so long, anxiety. She had intense anxiety. I said, wow. Immediately I got after working with her, and her parents called me to say, please keep working with her. She's very shy. We know she's too shy. So we have to be careful not to shelter our children so much that they're not prepared to go away to college. Because if you have that much anxiety just to work with people and answer the phone, what are you going to do when you go away and have to be really on your own? So it's important to keep working with our children. I totally agree with you. Were you going to say something, Dr. Regina?
No, I totally agree with that. We don't need to shelter our children. I'm not really sure though if that anxiety came from sheltering, not my mental health.
She said she's shy. Her mother said she was sheltered and extremely shy.
Yeah.
The mother says she was extremely shy, and she sees that in her daughter, and so they wanted me to keep working with her to help her come out of that.
Yeah. So Parker, what is your favorite book you have written? Which one is your favorite book? And I can imagine that your writing has changed as time has gone on. I think you said this is over a decade. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's hard to say which book is my favorite. It's sort of like saying which is your favorite child. But I would say the book that I enjoy the most, that really pulled my hair out though, was my book called The Butcher's Daughter. That was because it was exploring the black aristocracy of the 18 1800s in New York. And I wanted to write an antebellum story that was pre-Civil War that did not have a slave narrative attached to it. And I always
Oh,
give thanks to Dr. Peterson from Yale, I believe. She wrote a nonfiction story about her family history. And I read that story. I ate it up, I gulped it up. It took her years to get it completed. And
uh-huh.
from her family history, I found my story to write. And I sent her a copy of the book. I have no idea what she thought about it, but she said, "Thank you for the book." But it was so inspiring to see the Black aristocracy of the 1800s and just how
Wow.
influential they were in New York. For the lack of a better term, they were thousandaires, not necessarily millionaires, but thousandaires, but they were highly educated and they didn't see themselves as African American. They saw themselves as colored because they considered themselves Americans who were colored and they had a more cosmopolitan view of life during this time period. And they had
Wow.
to still deal with prejudice and discrimination, but they were the elites. And that really appealed to me. So when I was doing all this research, I discovered a whole new world of history that isn't often taught. So the second book in that series is coming out in a couple of months, um, called the Butler's Daughter. This one's called The Butcher's Daughter. This one's called The Butler's Daughter. And just more history, more learning, and hopefully people enjoy the story as well as the history involved.
Wow.
I would think that'd be my most enjoyable.
That's wonderful, Parker, and just how you go back into these stories and you are not looking for that for the slave uh, mentality. You're saying, hey, it was life before slavery. It was something that interrupted. So let's find out what's going on and to hear about the rich heritage that you're finding out about. Um,
It was
Meaning
fascinating to
money,
me. It really was.
homes, and yeah, that they had a life, and so what do you think about when you hear people often say that blacks are lazy, they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So what do you think about when you hear about that, and have you ever written even anything to touch on something of that nature?
Well, in the Butcher's Daughter, they dealt with a lot of prejudice that we currently don't even deal with now. During that time period, there was a branch of Scientology. I'm sorry, not science, a science that was evolving because of Charles Darwin's book about evolution. And
Yeah.
through this book, and forgive me, I'm not going to say the word out loud because it's the N word, but it was called enology. That was the name of this science at the time, and it was a study of black people being seen as an inferior species. Right? They said he is not a white man with black skin. He is not a different man. He is a subhuman, and it's not our fault. This is how nature made you, and so you have to understand that. Um, they were fighting this view of themselves in the midst of dealing with trying to get rid of slavery, trying to be seen as human, trying to be uh, uh,
um,
part of the culture. So when people say pull yourself out of bootstraps, there is merit to that. I can't ignore it because individuals do make a decision whether they're going to succeed in life or not. But are we dealing with the exact same circumstances that they did back in the 1800s? Probably not. I mean, we can go to a bathroom, we can go to certain places. I'm not saying that racism don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that,
right,
but I'm
right,
saying, are
yeah.
we dealing with the exact same parameters that they were dealing with? There was an incident in one of Dr. Peterson's book where they wanted to go to, I think, the opera or something, and they had to dress a certain way, look a certain way, make sure that they were just as capable of enjoying the fine arts as their white counterparts. So that's what I'm saying. Is it the exact same parameters that we're dealing with today? Probably not. So is there merit to that? Yes. Individuals do have to make a decision if they're going to succeed. Now I do stress that a lot because I mean I could put it on, like I deal with weight a lot. My big thing is weight. I could say it's the cookie making me eat it. You know what I'm saying? but but it's not like the cookie is jamming itself down my throat. It's my hand lifting
Right, right, right. Yeah.
that. So there is merit to that. I don't want to make it a broad statement, but there is merit to that because what are ancestors had to deal with, I don't think we have the same level that they had to deal with as well.
Thank you for that, Parker. So, real quick, station ID. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. You're watching us right now live on streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please don't forget to always hit like, follow us, subscribe, and share. And thank you again for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And don't forget that you can call in right now at 313-355-6018. Again, that number is 313-355-6018. So, Parker,
You want to give the ID for
our sponsor, ABB Wealth Strategies, is one of our sponsors for our show, and you can call them at 313-988-8200 to get strategies for your retirement, for prior to going in, yes, you're preparing to go into retirement, or if you're currently in retirement. You can call ABB Wealth Strategies. You can speak to Todd Bernstein or just his assistant there, and they will assist you. Todd will work with you personally. Let them know that you heard about them from WJZZ for our community updates, or just say WJZZ. And again, you can call them at 248-988-8200. Give ABB Wealth Strategies a call today. And Parker, I see that you said you showcase Christian authors. Now, are any of your books considered Christian books, or do they go into a Christian aspect, or just Christians that are writing various types of novels? Are any of them considered Christian books?
So when I first started off, I wrote just Christian fiction, but Christian fiction readers tend to have a certain view of what they consider Christian fiction is, right?
Right, because I'm looking at the wizards and they don't necessarily, many Christians don't necessarily go for Harry Potter and the wizards and that whole aspect of things.
Yeah, and I never got the memo. So, but over time, I've really stationed myself as a historical romance author. So I do write my Christian fiction, Christian-based books. Sometimes they're more inspirational, sometimes they're sweet and clean, but they do come from a Christian worldview. And then I also write for Harlequin. That's a little bit more spicier books, because in the Christian books, if you gotta keep it like a handhold or something, and I don't think men are geared that way. I don't think women are geared that way. So I kind of like a little bit of freedom I have with the general market.
So, did you when you write your books, somewhere in here in your bio it says that you consider yourself a fanatical Christian? What does that mean?
I say I have a fanatical obsession with the Lord in a lot of different genres. I thank the Lord for everything I have in my life. And when I first started this journey, all I wanted to be was an author. The Lord took that dream and he put it aside and said, "That's cute." And he turned me into a podcaster. And from that podcasting for the last 11 years, I have showcased Christian authors from all over the world, met wonderful people, read hundreds of books, and gotten to know people from many different walks of life from all over the world. And that was not my dream. That was a dream that he actually gave me. So that's what I mean by fanatical. And I thank the Lord for this opportunity that he gives me.
Awesome. And I see that you go from Detroit to England to Pakistan, that you go all over. So for two things. One, you're going to tell us how you also say that you can show people how to write a novel in 30 days. But then how did you expand your podcast for 11 years? Congratulations. And have viewership in England and Pakistan and, just around the world. What are some of the points you could give some of our viewers and listeners?
Well, I have guests on my shows from different countries. Like I've had them in Australia, China, Thailand, India, US, UK, New Zealand, I don't know.
And you connect them how? Through Clubhouse or what?
No, I don't use Clubhouse. My major platform is Facebook, and most of my interactions are on Facebook.
Okay.
because I get to build a platform. I get to People get to know who I am because they see my posts and stuff. I try to be transparent on my posts as much as possible. I still keep in my own privacy. They don't have to know everything, But I try to do that. I also reach out to authors. I'm constantly, thank goodness for Amazon. They have all my information, all the algorithms. They know what I like to read. So I give book recommendations, and that's how I meet some authors too. Through book recommendation, Amazon. People say, "Hey, Parker," like I had one lady on my show recently, and she sent me four more people that may be interested in being on my show. So it's just a lot of networking that I do. And by me being an extrovert, in a field usually dominated by introverts, most introverts just cling on to that one extrovert and hang on. So I've been that extrovert a lot of authors have clung on to for the last 11 years, so which is
So
great.
on Facebook, I'm sorry, Dr. Regina, on Facebook, though, you had to do something to connect with people from other countries. Everyone doesn't necessarily do that on Facebook. So what did you do? Seek out other authors from other countries? How did you
Yeah,
connect
I
with?
did a live post. I did a post saying seeking authors, and this is what
Mm,
the parameters were, and that's when I started to get people in. This is back in 20 11 years is what 2013, yeah, 2013. Yeah, oh my
okay.
gosh, but in 2013, that's when I started. I put out a post and I went to different places like that saying, "Hey, I'm doing this, doing that." Um, and then that's how it happened. And over time, people just started to recommend the show to others. And I would say, "Hey, if you know someone who's interested in being this, and here's my
Hmm.
criteria, um, they can do that." So it's all about putting yourself out there
Yes.
nowadays. At the time when my show came out, there were not a lot of shows strictly dedicated to Christian books and Christian authors. It
Hmm.
was shows that had books. You have books even now, but not strictly to just Christian. There are very few. And so, in some ways, I'm a pioneer. In some ways, I consider myself a pioneer for the
Okay.
industry a little bit because the one guy, he was like, "Oh, I'm talking to so and so," and now there's more podcasts popping up, more people doing this type of thing.
Hmm.
Great, you know. But that's how
Speaking
I
of
got
which,
it.
your podcast is called The Right Stuff, WRITE, and you're on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. EST time. And how do people connect with you? Where do they go, to your Facebook page or what?
So right now, I am moving everything over to my YouTube channel because
Okay.
I'm on Blog Talk currently, but I'm starting to move everything over to my YouTube, and
Mm,
then I've had to put my podcast on hold because I have four book deadlines I had to get done. I got
okay.
three of the four done, so I put
Mhm.
that on hold for a minute. But I'm moving everything over to YouTube, and I'll be uploading on YouTube on Tuesdays, but other days of the week as well. But when I first started off, I used to do live broadcasting for 7 years. That was fun. Uh, Whatever happened happened when it was live, and I do like recording now. It kind of helps me to practice my delivery and practice how I talk, make sure I'm enunciating my words correctly, and I don't sound like I'm Speedy Gonzalez from back in the old Looney Tune days. I just aged myself saying that too,
Oh,
but
that's Speedy Gonzalez. He likes
yeah,
my sister.
yeah.
Sister
I didn't have that
too.
much in my head, but yeah, that's right. Well, I wanted to ask you, Parker, when you say USA bestseller, could you elaborate on that more?
So USA Today bestselling author is a moniker that you get once you sell over 10,000 units of your book. And so that's what I did. I had a short story in an anthology, and we sold 10,000 units of that anthology, over 10,000 units of that anthology. And that's how I got the moniker.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
So how can you tell somebody, as we're getting closer to the close of our show, how to write a novel, or some tips that would help some people and that want to learn the business side, and how to even go about getting started writing a novel themselves, let alone writing a novel in 30 days. What
The
are
way
some
you
Mhm. Go ahead.
the way you start is by starting. You cannot edit a blank page. You can
Mm,
edit a page that has all kind of mistakes, but you cannot edit a blank page. So you have to start somewhere. The hardest thing for most inspiring authors to get started is to have a habit. They don't have a habit of writing. So over the years, I've had to learn this too. So I used to only write when I was inspired.
Right.
Now I make an appointment to be inspired. And I tell people, you don't have to write for hours on end. If you write 15 minutes a day, that's 15 minutes a day that you have more words on a page. You have to turn off your inner editor for your first draft. Your first draft is not going to be good. That's okay. You're just trying to get the story out first. Then you go ahead, take a year if you need. For some people, who need like a year to make sure it's quote unquote perfect, even though no such thing as perfect exists on this planet. But go ahead, take that time to do the editing, but you can't do it. So that's why I say in 30 days, it's possible for you to write your novel of 50,000 words. You want to have like a 50,000 words. That's what NaNoWriMo does. They do 50,000 words. But it doesn't have to be 50,000 words. Be 10,000 words. Doesn't matter. It's getting into the habit of making your writing important to you. If it's not important to you, you'll never finish that book, because we can use all the excuses in the world, but the one person holding us up in our novel writing is us.
Right. That is so true.
That's so true.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Parker. When you talk about developing that habit, and I love that you said that it wasn't about inspiration first, that you inspired yourself by putting in the time of writing. And that's what often has to happen. I don't care if it's with dieting, with exercising, you have to inspire yourself. And then as you inspire yourself to write, the inspiration, the discipline, and all that is going to come, right? And you've been doing this for a while. I guess I'm wondering, with all the books that you have written, and seeing this as your passion, because we can have passions, but it doesn't mean that we keep it going. So is that what you do? Are you still writing each day, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever, to keep your passion going, to keep yourself invested?
So now I write full time. When I first started writing, I was working, going through my church work, working, all that kind of stuff, right? In 2019, I was able to quit and write full time. But even then, I had to learn how to be more disciplined, because I would write at work on my lunch hour. I would pull up an email, be writing stories. I wanted to do anything else what I was doing at work. You know how you know how, but
Yeah.
now I write now between the hours of 9 to 2 in the morning, because that's when my mind is most active. That's when the imagination really flows for me during that time period. I heard
9
another author.
p.m. 9
Go ahead.
p.m.
Yeah,
9
9
p.m.
p.m. to 2 a.m. That's when I write.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a night owl, because my thoughts are very active. I don't know if how true this is, but the right side of the brain, which is where all your imagination is active when you're in the, it's like when you're about to fall asleep. That's why you can have like weird dreams and stuff, you know. But whatever that time period where you can kind of get your thoughts flowing, find that time period. It doesn't have to be hours, be 15 minutes. If you have a phone now, dictate on your phone. You can dictate on your phone while you're in the bathroom. You can dictate while you're in the shower. You can dictate while you're driving. You have that thing there, and then it's going to. Nowadays you can dictate. It goes to a Microsoft Word document. You can take the Word document, edit it. You see what I'm saying? But you have to get into the habit of making your writing a habit. Now here's the thing. You may not have to write every day, but maybe you want to write twice a week. You know, Mondays and Fridays, I'm writing twice a week. You see what I'm saying? Whatever that habit is that's conducive to your schedule, do it. Because every word is a victory. I assure you of that.
I love that. Every word is a victory. Well, tell me, and we only have like 1 minute, and please, whatever information you want to give us, your website and your other website, because Michelle mentioned that. But tell me, what do you think of AI at this point?
AI, I'm very ambivalent towards it. I see its uses as an author, and I do use it for like research. I use it to use for ideation, where you're trying to figure your thoughts out, stuff like that. I do not use it to write. I don't use it to write. I've seen people who have used AI to write books, and they're writing books, and some readers don't care that it's AI. I do think we have to put the brakes on it, because if you don't have human creativity, what exactly do you have? So it's in the wild, wild west stage right now. It is a disruptive technology, but it is still useful. So I am very ambivalent towards AI right now.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you. Tell us again how people can get in touch with you, Parker. Give us the website that you would like them to go to, or number, or how people can get in touch with you to get some of these wonderful novels.
Well, go to my Amazon page. So we go to amazon.com/Parker J. Cole, or type in Parker J. Cole. You can see all my books from there.
Okay, Amazon.com/Parker J. Cole.
Is that one
Or type
word?
it in. Yeah, or type it in. I think. Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know now. Just go to Amazon.com and type in Parker J. Cole. Just do that. I just thought about that.
Okay. And thank you very much for
Yes,
being our
thank
guest
you.
today. We
It
really
was-
appreciate
it
you. I'm
was.
looking forward to even maybe reading one of your novels. They sound
Yes.
very interesting.
Yes.
And for those of you who are watching, next week we're going to have the Greater Detroit Agency for the Blind and Visually Impaired on as one part for 1/2 hour, and then we're going to have some youth on, some youth who are going to be talking about bullying experiences and things that they experience in school, and self-esteem, how to some self-esteem building, and how they have to keep themselves uplifted while they're in grade school. So be sure and tune in next Wednesday, 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 p.m. right here, WJZZ Cool TV Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks, Parker.
Thank
We
you,
really
Parker.
appreciate you being on, and we will love to have you again.
Yes,
Thank you so much. I look forward to it.
Yes.